we are going to paint an apple, but first I'm going to have you pencil in this general shape. So I've got another piece of paper where I'm going to draw that in marker so that you're able to see it a little bit better. So here I go. You don't need to draw a marker. You can draw this very lightly, very sketchy in pencil. So the first thing I want is just this little smile where your apple, so my apple is a little bit bigger. I drew it to take up the whole piece of paper, but I'm going to show you on this smaller piece of paper. So we have our little smile, and then coming up from our smile, I'm going to make 2 lines that kind of go out a little bit and then top them off. So that's our apple's stem. And then for the shape of the apple, for the body of the apple, we are going to start about halfway up that stem, and you're going to come out and around, and then at the bottom you can kind of make some little curvies, and then I'm going to do the same thing up here, out and around and in, and just connect there at the bottom. So that's our apple. I added leaves to my apple, and you can add as many leaves as you want, or you don't have to add any at all. But for our leaf, we're going to have the little tiny stem that comes out. And then I'm going to go up, curve, and come down and kind of have a little fancy edge at the end. Same over here, down and curve. Just come to that little point. And then I'm going to add a simple curved line just to show the center of that leaf. I'm going to add another one over here too. So let's add tiny stem, and then round and pointy, round and pointy, and then I'm going to have that curved line. So on my paper, I actually added a third little leaf, and this one is further away, so it's going to be smaller, but it's going to have that same little shape and kind of a curved line in the middle. So this will be the basis for us to get started. So get your apple drawn there. And then, my friends, we will get out our paints and we will get started painting. All right, so now I've got my apple here. If you still need the apple, there it is. But just sketch it in. It doesn't have to be super perfect. And then I'm going to go into my water. I'm going to get my brush wet. And I'm going to paint this leaf in. I'm going to paint all 3 of my leaves just with water. Just with water. Water, water, water. Doesn't have to be a lot of water, just some water. Just get it wet. And we're going to start with yellow paint. So I'm starting with yellow, and I'm going to add yellow to each of these leaves. This is a really fun painting because you see how we really paint from light to dark with watercolor. So we're adding yellow to each of these leaves. You can go down the stem if you want to, that's fine. But just add some yellow. We're also going to add a little yellow right here around the stem. So I'm going to kind of make some yellow that comes up this way. So there's some yellow coming up from that stem. And we're going to just bring it around, kind of bring it down like this. It doesn't really have to touch the top of that apple. It doesn't matter if it does. But let's bring that yellow down and around. And then I want you to get just water. We're not getting any more paint. Just water. And kind of bring that yellow down, down and around, up into that stem. Just kind of down and around. Then we'll go a tiny bit into the yellow, but mostly this is water. And we're going to cover most of this apple with our yellow and our water. You can leave some white spaces though. It's all right if you have some sketchy, dry white spaces. We're gonna come in with yellow and just set a little background of yellow. And let's really fill in that whole apple. Doesn't have to be solid yellow, but we want to get just some different values of this yellow in here. It's kind of scribbly is okay. That's absolutely fine. All right, so there's our lovely yellow apple. This apple is going to be red at the end, so don't worry. But let's come in here. Let's make sure it's nice and wet under that little smiley shaped line that we have there. And let's get some orange. Let's get orange, and I'm going to come right under this line and just bring this orange down. And again, I'm going to make these stripes, and they sort of follow the shape of the apple, if you see what I'm talking about. So they're following the shape of the apple. So we just want these nice loose lines. You don't have to cover the whole entire apple right now. We just want to get a little bit of that orange paint down and get it covered. And maybe you're thinking, my apple needs to be red, not orange. Don't worry, we'll get there. So this paint up here is probably sort of dry. So I want you to get a little bit of orange and go up around that border of your apple and around this border as well. So just come on down and around. And if you need a little more paint, grab it. But you can see how we're making these lines. And when you do these lines here, I want you to pull downward toward the center of that apple. And the edge can be smooth, but the bottom of this line is going to be more spiky. Now we're going to let that apple sit for a little bit. And we're going to go into our green. We're going to add some contour to these leaves. So I'm going to do my little stem, apple leaf stem, and then I'm going to come and follow that line that I made all the way to the tip of that leaf. I'm going to get just a teeny tiny bit of water and just make those little leafy edges. So let's let that line be a little bit darker. Sometimes this paint is still wet, so this line doesn't want to get very dark, and that is all right. I'm going to add a little more paint anyway, because we can always come back and add more to this leaf. All right, then I'm going to do the same thing to my other two leaves. I'm adding this stem, and I've got my little point, and then I'm going to, sometimes this is hard because in real life I might be turning my paper to make it easier for my hand to make these lines, but since I have taped it down so that my fabulous friends will be able to see it better, I can't do that. So since this paint is still sort of wet, I'm going to darken it up a little bit, and then I'm going to move along. I'm going to do this same thing to this little back leaf. It's tinier, it's further away, so I don't have to be quite as detailed as I did on these first ones. All right, so I'm just going to add some of that green. Adding. I'm going to get a little thicker green and go on the outside of this leaf. And on this outside of the leaf. And if you're wondering, why didn't you just do that in the first place? It's a little bit important that parts of these leaves dry, even if they're not totally dry, but important that they dry just a little bit before we put the next step on. All right, so then we'll go around our little leaf. If you're a nut extra and you only have one leaf, you may be waiting around. Sorry about that. I really like making these leaves. It's fun. All right, so then let's go back in our yellow. And I'm going to kind of go up against that green that I put on the border. Only up at the border, nowhere else. Only the border. I'm going to rinse, go back in my yellow, and do the same thing over here at the other border. And if it doesn't blend, you can kind of dance your brush around there a little bit. But this is just the borders. We're just coming in like that. All right, so same thing over here, just at the little border. I'm going to bring in this green, this yellow, kind of right next to that green. And there's still some little white space in the middle. That's fine. You can add yellow to it or you don't have to. And then I'll do one more over here on this last little apple leaf. So you can see we're just building. We're building color, we're building layers, and we're building a little bit of texture. I think I'm going to come over these white spaces that I have left. Perfect. And some of the leaves are a little more golden than others. That's okay. They can be different. They're different leaves. So I'm going to rinse out my brush. I'm going to get a tiny bit of green, that nice watery green that I have here. And I'm going to add some little stripes of green coming up from the center. Right above that line where our orange is, right? So it's kind of green. We're going to come out. And then I'm going to drop some yellow on top of it. So we want this to be that kind of that apple green. It doesn't have to match on both sides. It can be a little different. All right, so there's my little inner hole of the apple where the stem is coming out of. So let's just let it be for a moment. Hang out, maybe find something nearby. Fan it a little bit. I'm going to fan it with my fishing lure painting that I have here. We want to get those leafies nice and dry. Oh, here we go. Just let them dry on their own. All right. Then we are going to rejoin the party with red. This is a red apple, so we're going to add some red to it. Let's start with a very wet red, kind of right here. And we're going to be very kind of willy-nilly with this. And then when we get over to the edge, we can come down a little further. And I'm going to take my brush over here and go sideways and kind of scrape down. And then we can get a little more and add more pigment to what we've just done. And this is a little bit of a dry brush technique. So I'm pulling downward with my brush. Get a little more paint, and I'm going to pull downward over here as well. I want to leave some bright spots. Oh, I got a piece of goo on my paper. I want to leave some bright spots. And I want this part up here to be kind of blendy. So I want to leave some bright spots, but I want to keep adding my nice dark red. It's definitely going to be at the edges. So it's going to be darker at these edges. And then we kind of keep adding, keep layering on those outward edges. So we have a dark upper edge. We have some darkness here, but through this middle, it's not all dark. It's kind of lighter. And we'll have a little dark edge up there. And you're going to come in around that edge, almost to that stem. And you just want to pull some small little points down. There we go. So the middle of that apple is looking really, really nice. And I'm going to re-wet this because I want to bring down some more of this red. I'm trying to leave some big parts showing through though, because I don't want my whole apple to be dark red. This apple is shiny and it has lots of nuanced, beautiful colors in it. So I want the outside to be mostly that red, but I'm going to leave some nice big spots of shiny area through the middle of that apple. And that's going to help us see how shiny, how tasty, how pretty this apple is. We can also bring some up from the bottom, and some can be thin, some can be thick. We want to make sure that we hit the bottom line of that apple all the way around and just come up, just pull up like this. So we're leaving these nice spots of yellow shining through. Let's get a little more red. And where our red paint is still wet, we can kind of add some splotches. And I put them here and it's not still wet, so I'm gonna add more water and I'm gonna make it still wet. All right, and then I'm gonna add some splotches to this outside part because I want this red to just blend in where this beautiful apple is red. And getting that lovely texture is simply a lot of layering. A lot of continuing to add deeper and deeper color. I'm going to add some oranges in here too, because I like the way the oranges help the red brighten up a little bit. Just wherever I feel like it. Adding some orange. A little bit to the edge here. And we'll come up from the bottom too. And I'm really trying to leave enough of this light part shining through. So I'm going to come over with a little bit of a fan. Let it dry a bit. All right, now I need to make a color. Where is my palette? All right, now I need to make a color. So I already have some red in here. You can use the lid of your watercolor paint pan to do this. So this is red. Red, red, red. And we want to darken this red up a little bit. So let's add maybe a little bit of brown. So let's add brown to that red. And then I think we might also perhaps add just a tiny bit of purple. See what happens. So a little purple, a little red, and we have this darker color. I'm liking it. I think I need a little more purple even. So this is going to help us really shade this apple. And I'm going kind of right through the middle with it and adding it on some of the places where I kind of want this apple to look darker. Just through the middle. Because if I make it look darker through this center, then the lighter parts near it will look lighter. So I'm just going to add a little bit through that center. And then let's make it even darker. Let's really get dark here. I'm going to add even more purple to make it even purplier. And then maybe some red to make it redder purplier. And then I'll just keep layering it through that center of the apple. And what I am noticing over here is this is still very wet. I need that part of my apple to dry. And I can add a few little lines over here to give it definition. Maybe a few coming up from the bottom to give it interest. But this is the way we get that layering going on. And we really have some nice reflecty feel on our apple. So I want like one very reflecty space right there through the center. I'll have a little of that yellow coming through, but I want most of my reflection right there. If we want more reflection in another place, like let's say we want it to be very reflecty right here. We've decided it also has some reflection there. We can lift by drying on our brush. We can take away some of the paint that we've already put there. And then we can allow that to dry. And we can come back and add some of the little stripes of our other paint. Like we can just pull it right up like that. And that's going to give us a shiny, kind of a shiny area too. Let's add some little yellow to it. I like that. I like that idea. All right. So you can, for as long as you want, come back in here and keep adding like the yellows. I can add yellows and oranges and reds to any of these spots as the layers dry. And it's only going to continue giving that apple more depth and more personality. So I need to go away from the fruit part of the apple for a bit because I am neglecting our poor little stem. So I'm going to go into brown. And I'm going to do the top half of this stem brown. And I'm hoping that it will not bleed into these parts down here. If it does, let's vacuum up that paint. And I'm going to just pull a little bit of it over to the side. But that's our kind of our basis for this stem. So I'm going to leave it like that. Let's add a little more brown to it. Make it kind of pokey at the top because we ripped it off of the apple tree. We were very excited to bring this apple home and have it be our model for our beautiful apple painting. Let's head back up into these leaves. And I'm going to mix the color that is, let's see. Let's go blue. So I'm going to mix blue and green. You can also mix blue and yellow and get the color that you want. I'm going to start, whoops, I got some speckle. I guess I'll be speckling this later. I was going to anyway. Okay, so blue. I'm going in my blue and getting a great deal of blue. I want this to be sort of a dark color. So I'm going to get some blue. I'm going to get some green. And mix it up. Because I want this to be a bit of a darker color than I already have. Maybe even a tiny bit of black. Not a lot. Black can overtake stuff. So this is blue and green and black. And I'm watering it down pretty good. And then I'm going to come over to my leaves. And I'm going to go along that upper edge of the leaf with this little darker color that I just made. It needs to be darker. I need more black. So it's a very dark, it's a dark teal color. So I'm going to go along my upper edge and line. And then I'm going to go along that center line and line. And then make some kind of big sections that just go out here. So these are kind of bigger sections, right? And then I'm just going to make some little pokey parts coming in and out. So that's kind of fun. And then we'll do something similar on the bottom. What I want to do is make sure that I'm letting some of this yellow shine through. So we have that nice, fun leaf. Then I'm going to bring my paint brush in here and just make a spot, dry out my brush, and erase. That was fun. I just thought I'd try it. All right. And then on these others, we can do the same. We can outline with on one side and add those little leaf details. And then same deal. So let's outline, edge, and then add those little leaf details. Ooh, I like the way this leaf turned out. I think that one's my favorite. How about you? I don't mind, like if I have something like this and I want to try things, I totally don't mind having them be different. So I want one side to be much darker than the other side. So this one, I'm still just, this is how you can kind of erase something you've done if you're not in love with it. If you like your leaf, you can leave it the way it is, but I do not like it. I'm gonna erase. Getting that all out of there. And then I'll come back in a minute when that's dry and I'll add some darkness to it. All right, so let's fan. Woo, fanning my apple. Looking really pretty. I am liking it. What I want to do is add a little more yellow through here. Just to give it a little bit of highlight, some interesting color. And as you kind of go through, when you pick up the colors that are in your apple that are wet, it'll make even more new colors for you. So I've got that, and then I'm gonna go, whoops, I'm gonna go back to my dark red color one more time. One more time of dark red. And what I'm gonna do is look for places that are dry. I'm not trying to paint over wet with this, but I'm looking for places where I've already painted this dark red, and I'm simply adding a little bit of depth to them with the same color. But because we used that other color earlier, it's drying and it's lightening up. So I'm just coming in here giving it a little more of that depth of color, so that as it dries, our apple is going to look really nice. I bet when you signed up here to do an apple, you did not know you would be using purple, huh? I wasn't certain I was going to be using purple either, but it called for it. It looked like it needed it. So here we are. And we want to keep going in that round shape of the apple. So I think that I am done. I'm just gonna clean up this edge real fast. So I think there, I am done with my apple. I am gonna throw some little speckles on it. And when I say speckles, it's these accidental little splashes of paint. Oh no, I have to go back to that leaf. I forgot about you, leaf. So I'm gonna come back to this leaf. I'm gonna add this dark color here on top. that I like. I do. And then I'm just going to pull some of it out. All right. I like it. Oh, now for the speckles. So, oh no, the stem. We didn't finish the stem. Ah. Okay, yellow. So I'm going to go back in yellow. And I'm going to go down this side of my stem and kind of do some little lines. And as these dry, they'll blend with that brown that's already there, and it'll be great. I'm going to head back to my brown very, very quickly and add just a few little extra brown stripies, maybe an edge. Maybe straighten up that edge. So there's my stem, and I don't mind that my stem is a lot of different colors. It's a natural item, so that's absolutely fine. We even could put a little bit, just a tiny bit, we could put a little bit of black throughout the stem and down the edge of it. That might have been too much black. All right. So let's just take it, water it down. And anywhere you feel like you've got too much black, you can dry out your brush and come back and just lift that paint right off. It'll leave a little bit of black, but not too much. Okay, so now I think we're done for real, and we are ready for sprinkles. What color speckles do we want? Oh, definitely yellow. Okay, so I'm getting very, very watered down yellow, and I am tapping, just little taps. You can also, if you want even littler taps, you can tap on something else. So when I'm doing speckles on something like an apple, I think of what color the little freckles would be on the apple. And so I'm going to use those, add some speckles, but I don't mind if they go all over the paper too. That's fine with me. Let's do some green speckles. I want really watered down paint. So my green speckles are going to be from further away, and then maybe some blue. I'll try to get these only on the outside of my paper and not on my apple, because my apple really, it wouldn't have blue speckles. But if it has a few, I will not let it bother me. It's my apple. I do what I want, right? Okay. So that is it. That is my finished apple. I'm loving it. I think it's great. And we're going to come back when it's dry, and I'll show you what it looks like. All right, it's pretty dry now. I am happy with it, and I'm going to go ahead and sign it. I think I'm going to sign it right here. There's my little apple. I hope that you enjoyed your time. If you feel like it, you could always go back in your black marker, and you could add some detail to it. I don't know that that's necessary, but it's always a fun step if it's something you like to do. So good luck on this apple, on future apples. If you wanted to do a green apple, instead of using these reds and purples and browns, you could use greens and yellows and browns, and I think you would have a similar outcome. So best of luck, and I will see you next time. Thanks for painting with me.